Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 297 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on March 17th, 2026. How are all you wonderful folks doing? Yeah, I hope you're doing well. Things are very busy. So many silencers, so little time, as they say. On today's episode, we're going to be going through the technical examination of last week's Rampart range Carson 30 SR-25 study. That's a mouthful. Really interesting Otter Creek Labs infinity derivative. So the Carson 30 is a lightweight titanium model meant for battle rifle field use. Pretty interesting silencer, I think. And next up, we have two intro topics after that. The long-awaited CAT ST and AKB test reports. Those are being published today concurrently with this episode. Those are CAT's universal 5.56 and 30 caliber silencers. The CAT ST was tested on the M4 and Mark 18. You're going to get the M4 data today. And then the AKBAR, the AKB, was tested on the SR-25, and you're getting that today too. So both silencers use CAT's new SBX technology, which is an evolution of surge bypass, sort of. We're going to go into that, kind of. And so that was a pretty interesting test program. So we're going to give you a preview of what to expect in those reports today, in some intro topics after we get finished with the technical discussion for the Carson 30. So there's a lot to cover, but we're going to get through it, okay? So it's like a double feature, kind of. Yeah, so let's get on with the show. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Be sure to note there are timestamps in the episode description wherever you're listening. So there's a lot to cover today. There's going to be a lot of different timestamps. So, rather than listen to the whole thing, which you can, of course, but if you need to skip to anything, just use those, and it should help you navigate, okay? We're going to go ahead and get into some ad reads right now. You can always skip these if you want, but if you want to stick around with me, you can learn about the fine companies that make this podcast possible every week. And the first one is Legion Athletics, because nothing you do is worth doing without consistency, whether you're running or lifting weights or playing football or testing silencers. You have to do things all the time if you want to be good at them. That's right. Legion Athletics can help you with that. They have supplements that you need to do your job correctly. Whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout, vitamins, creatine, all kinds of things. They don't have everything you need, but they have most of it. And one thing I really like about Legion is that if you are a competitive athlete and subject to drug testing, Legion is not going to sell you anything that will make you fail your drug test, which is really cool. Okay, I know a lot of you folks appreciate that too. Use the code REPUSCIENCE and save. What do you do? Yeah, you get buy one, get one, 50% off your entire shopping cart. And then if you keep using that code REPUSCIENCE, every time you buy stuff from Legion, you'll get 20% cash back using points every time you buy stuff, which is really good. Okay. Also, this episode is brought to you by Silencer Shop, a very large distributor of silencers, and they are well known for their kiosk where you can do your fingerprints and photos electronically. You cut down on errors, and you simplify the entire silencer purchasing process. You get a money back guarantee, which is pretty good, so you don't pay any transfer fees when you use their kiosk. That's right. You don't have any paperwork errors, and just you and your silencer with no drama. Truly a silencer ownership simplified. Also, Top Gun Range out of Houston sponsors the podcast. They're a really good group of folks down there in Houston, and they have a very large 15-lane indoor shooting range and the largest selection of rental firearms in the entire state of Texas, which is really crazy. So if you're on a business trip passing through Houston, or if you live there, go see Kyle and his gang. Literally, he's a gang member. No, they're cool, though. You should check it out. You can even shoot machine guns at the range if you want. They're awesome. TopGunRange.com. Oh, also, they know a lot about silencers. That's important. Speaking of silencers, Capital Armory also sponsors the podcast. Boy, when it comes to silencers, you always wonder if the dealer you're talking to is really going to understand them, especially when they're big. Man, Capital Armory is kind of a breath of fresh air in that respect. They actually really are into silencers. Like they're silent. Like even if they weren't running Capital Armory, they'd be into silencers. You understand what I'm saying? Like they're not like, yeah, they're gun people, I guess, but like they're really NFA people, which is more than I can say for a lot of different dealers nationwide. Like I think Capital Armory is one of those classic rare dealers that is accessible to you in the modern age, which is cool. I don't want to lose folks like this. It's really important for NFA in general. I'm a purist, and I do believe that. One thing that they offer is shipping silencers directly to you in the 42 states where silencers are legal, and that's a pretty big deal. Okay, Capital Armory, go check them out. They're in Texas. Also, this podcast is brought to you by the Pew Science Laboratory. Who are those guys? Well, let me tell you. I'm the technical director of this lab, and in the interest of public education, we continue to do the podcast every week. It's pretty cool. We sponsor this thing to keep it going with the goal of pushing the research forward and the whole industry forward one test at a time. You can visit our website at pewscience.com. There's things like the suppression rating, which is the simplest and most accurate hearing-safe rating for your suppressed small arms, based on the entire gunshot from before the combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone. It's really cool. And it's the home of the silencer sound standard. There are 8 sections in the standard, and it's the most in-depth and accurate silencer data and analysis in the entire known universe, at least the observable universe. It's all available to the public 24/7 at pewscience.com, and you can support it yourself. You can support this podcast. You can support the lab. You can support all the testing we do by joining with a membership if you want at pewscience.com. It's pretty cool. And if that's not your game, hey, man, you can throw us a one-time donation too on the review page and podcast page. That's cool too. Every little bit helps. And you know what? If money's not your thing and you just want to hang out and learn about silencers and not pay anything, that's, of course, just fine. We ask that you spread the word and give the podcast a good rating and your favorite provider, and let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. We're also on YouTube if you're into that, which you might be, so you can go hang out there too. 3 topics today. Like I said, first we're going to hit the technical discussion of Report 6216 for Rampart Range Carson 30 on the SR-25. Then we're going to hit the new Report 6217, the CAT ST on the 14.5-inch M4. Then we're going to hit Report 6218, the CAT AKB on the 14.5-inch SR-25. So it's an SR-25 sandwich today with ST in the middle. That's weird. Let's move on to topic 1 at a time of 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay. Very good. There's a lot to cover today. It's going to be very fun. Okay, so topic 1, Sound Signature Review 216, the Rampart Range Suppression Carson 30 on the 14.5-inch SR-25. That's 7.62 NATO. Yeah, it's a man's gun. Yeah, so how is this progressing, right? I asked you that last episode. I was like, how is it progressing, this short barrel battle rifle testing? I think it's going pretty well, all things considered. Couldn't be more pleased, actually. So I'm going to split this talk into this similar, like the 6 subtopics like we typically do with the technical talk. We're going to go do an intro and recap. We're going to do just a physical overview of the Carson 30. We're going to go through the technical design of the Carson 30 silencer. We're going to go into the hazard map brief. That's 8.1.13. Then we're going to go through detailed system performance, and then I'll give you some overall thoughts. Okay, so that's how I'm going to break down this first topic about this silencer. Okay, and it's a pretty cool silencer. And I don't know about you, but when I used to drag an AR-10 through cow pastures at night shooting pigs, I didn't once tell myself, boy, I wish this rugged razor was heavier and louder. Not to pick on rugged, but yeah, dude, like, no, seriously though, like, modern silencer technology is really cool. You guys actually don't know how good you have it. A lot of you do know how good you have it, but a lot of you don't. It was not that long ago that we simply did not have silencers like this. And, you know, a really cool thing about the Carson 30 from Rampart Range is that it's actually similar to a silencer you know. It is, the Otter Creek Labs Infinity. But the technology has been adapted to be used for exactly what I just told you. And you know what? Some military guys are really liking that. They're really liking the lighter envelope. And it's neat to see stuff like this. You know, especially this early in our SR-25 journey with you folks. It's cool to see. I think we're really hitting some key silencers early, which I think is neat. And it will only get more interesting from here, I'm sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're going to see more today. I mean, as far as SR-25 silencers go, I think the Carson 30 has pretty balanced performance, and it's not huge, so that's good. Okay, let's check out the silencer now at a time of 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Okay. Yeah, Carson 30 overview. Yes. And I have it right in front of me here. It's very nice, very light. You pick it up, it's like lighter than you think it's going to be. It's one of those situations. It appears that they shoved a titanium infinity core into a titanium tube envelope. They changed the termination of the distal vent structures. They made the end cap non-removable. And they completely sealed the end except for the primary bore, except for the primary exit orifice, and they kept the hub interface. And I say it appears. I say it appears they did all that because it literally looks like that's what they did. I mean, from what we can tell, actually, it was a good move too, based on the performance that you saw in the report last week. I think it was a good move. We're going to get to that in a minute, but yeah, I think all in all, it was a pretty positive decisions they made. The departure from a typical infinity that is most striking about this thing to me is the weight. You're sitting at 9.8 ounces without a mount. Adding that titanium direct thread mount we're using to test the silencer, you're going to hit 11 ounces. Okay, so that goes back to what I was saying in the intro here about carrying your rifle around, and I think something I said last episode too. It's only 11 ounces, and this is a battle rifle, so it's hanging off the end. So that can be significant to you, Moving on, other physical parts of the silencer. So the outside of the silencer is also different than an Infinity. It's actually smooth. It looks very simple. This one is black, though I do believe you can get them in brown or other colors, which may be something you want to do if you're setting up a silencer for arid climates, for outdoor use, things like that. Maybe you're going full FDE or something. I think that's cool, actually. I mean, believe me, I'm a SCAR person, so I love some FDE. Us SCAR people are weird, and we like that. So the length of the silencer is 6.6 inches, and it's hub compatible. So with the mount, you're going to expect to hit about 7 inches. Now, the lengths, keep in mind, the lengths that we give you in our reports on the website, as stated, are from the end of the mount to the end of the silencer. So, ordinarily, I would say that means barrel shoulder to end of silencer. In this case, since it's the SR-25, the mount is indexing on the muzzle. There is no shoulder on an SR-25. And so I guess you would just have to imagine there being a barrel shoulder. So the main point I want to make with the dimension is that if the whole thing is 7 inches, regardless if it's muzzle index or shoulder index, it's not adding 7 inches to your gun. It's adding whatever the length is minus the amount of threaded barrel going into the mount. Okay? That's just a rule of thumb for our length conventions we list. But we make them consistent, meaning that we're always going to give you from the end to the end. Okay, cool. I know it sounds simple, but I just wanted to refresh it just in case some people miss it, okay? The silencer is 1.71 inches in diameter, so it's not quite that popular 1 3/4, but it's a little bit bigger than 1.5 or 1.6. So again, that might not matter to you, but it's good to know if you're looking for covers or things like that for mirage mitigation, on a 308, which can be a thing. Or if you're really hell-bent on understanding silencer volume and how it scales to performance, which I think is not as interesting as some of you think it is, but some of you really love to compute those volumes for some reason, even though it's the inside of the silencer controls that, not really. So anyway, it's 1.71 inches in diameter. I will say my overall subjective opinion of the exterior envelope of the silencer and the look and the feel, I guess, is that it's a pretty plain Jane utilitarian looking model, and I'm kind of old fashioned, and I enjoy that look. Actually, it's cool to me. I enjoy plain Jane looking silencers. That's Everyone likes different stuff. I do like that it's hub compatible, particularly because we need that to be the case due to the weird SR-25 mount threading, so we can test the silencer. So I was very happy it was hub compatible, so we can use that direct thread mount for testing. So maybe I'm biased toward hub in this case. One of those rare cases where I'm biased toward it. Anyway, when you pick up the silencer, like I said, it does feel light. Because it is, like, objectively, like, so their goal was achieved. I think I talked about that last time too. I do think they set out to do this thing, and I like it when a plan comes together for a company. When they set out to make a solution, it meets their requirements, it performs the way they want, it has the envelope where they want. Sounds like they did what they wanted to do. And whenever I see that happening, whether it's this or like an athlete training for a competition or whatever it is, I'm like, hey, you had a plan and you executed. Cool. Good job. So, yeah. All right, let's get a little more complicated now at a time of 15 minutes. Nope. Damn, dude. Time of 16 minutes and 4 seconds. Missing the freaking post like an amateur today. Carson 30 silencer design. Yeah, here's where this is actually deceptively complicated. Okay. So this is, in fact, an Otter Creek Labs Infinity in titanium instead of Inconel, with a very major and important change. Okay, the end of the silencer. Now there are some things that Otter Creek Labs had to do with the Infinity to make it adaptable to use, like, different end caps. And not only that, but when using different end caps, they wanted to be able to make those end caps, or let those end caps change behavior and actually make those changes meaningful for performance, for their design. And, instead of just like venting extra blast load from the axial bore, like a lot of, old school vented end caps do, like, do you remember, like, you could get like some different vented end caps for some silencers, and all they did was just vent from the axial bore. It was just really not productive. No, Otter Creek actually gave a lot of thought to the way the Infinity worked, and so as a consequence of those design choices and realities, they had a specific distal geometry inside the silencer to allow flow path access. They had to let the flow paths access the vents depending on which end cap the user chose to use. It truly did have to be user adaptable in both mechanical change of end cap and function change of end cap. Now, in the case of Rampart range, they licensed the Infinity core tech, but they didn't need, or they didn't want, the modular end cap nature of the Infinity design, right? So at first you're like, well, why not? It's like, well, what this allowed them to do is to be more specialized and pick exactly what they wanted the terminal flow state to be in the silencer every time, no matter what. And so by doing that, they could tune the distal gas velocity to a constant they were happy with on different hosts. And so what they ended up settling on, it appears, is something that works very well on 308 gas guns. So they're getting enough gross flow rate for weapon function to still be okay, but they're still controlling blast momentum out of the silencer in a way that doesn't make the signature overly severe from the short barrels, like, for example, this test host in this report, right? So I think that's cool. So you ask yourself, well, what are the building blocks for that? Well, first, to get the gross flow rate in check, especially on a platform like 7.62 NATO, which has a lot of combustion gas volume, you're going to need a high early time flow rate. You really do need that. So that means a lot of venting early in the blast chamber, and it has to be effective venting. It has to be useful. Now, does the Carson 30 have that? Yeah, it does. It does, actually. It has an identical first expansion chamber, or blast chamber, to the Infinity 7.62. If you look inside, you'll see that. And that's a really good thing. The core is designed to flow relatively fast, and the second building block after that is that the distal geometry is more restrictive than it is in the Infinity. So not only restrictive, but terminating in a different way. So you may be So you may be clearing the blast loads really fast off that first reflector and venting out of that blast chamber, but you are indeed throttling late time flow when it's time to pay the piper at the exit of the silencer, right? And that's really good. That's that dual 1-2 punch you really need for effective, gas gun suppression. And it's really good in this case because that's what you really need to do when you have a violent rifle cartridge combustion situation. 308 is not going to be very forgiving out of a 14-inch barrel, and you have to mind your P's and Q's. You have to manhandle it eventually down the stack, and they did that. They did that by changing the Infinity to this, because the Infinity can't quite do what this does because of the compromises they had to induce for the adaptability of the end caps. Remember, every time you do something like that, you compromise. So in order to be a specialist, you have to reduce adaptability, and that's what that's what Rampart Range did with the Carson 30. Okay, it's cool. And it's actually, when you really think about it, this is an interesting technical case study on silencer design. And it's fortuitous that we have it. I think everyone should be very thankful that this exists because it shows what can happen when you really zone in on specificity. Remember, the Infinity was designed as a silencer you could give to your kids later, right? And it works on so many different things through adaptability, yada, yada. That doesn't mean that the technology in that silencer couldn't be adapted to specific use cases. Okay, that's what Rampart Range did, and I think that's neat. So now that you know what the silencer is for, let's take a look at a big picture of what to expect from it when it's sitting in its defined role. Okay, we'll do that at a time of 21 minutes and 54 seconds. Okay, very good. Hazard map brief 8.1.13. Very good. I'm going to open that on my computer here. It's public. You're all free to look at it if you want. And this is good. This is very, very useful. I mean, I'm telling you, and these specifically, these SR-25 hazard maps are neat, aren't they? And by the way, this is in the website in section 8 of the standard. Okay, pewscience.com/hazard maps. And I think that's how you get there. Whatever it is, you can find it. It's a colored map. And this is the second one you've seen on the SR-25. You saw the Dillon DRC 308 first. Now you're seeing this Carson 30. And actually, today you're going to also see the CAT AKB on the SR-25. It's really neat to look at systems like this in risk space spatially. The suppression rating is a risk metric. Okay? Is it perfect? No. Of course not. It's not perfect. But it's a really good representation of human risk. And it's scalable and it's very consistent. It's adapted specifically for the range of common suppressed small arm hazards you will encounter as you shoot things like a pistol or a rifle or things like that, with or without a silencer. Now, without a silencer, your risk is going to be very high. The suppression rating will drop to the single digits, if not to zero, because there is almost no suppression of the hazard, okay? But when you suppress the blast load propagation with a silencer, you're going to start to see the suppression rating climb, signifying what? A decrease in hazard. That's right. Or what's another way to say that? An increase in the safety rating. Okay? Suppression of hazard is what the suppression rating quantifies. Okay? That's what it's for. So when you look at the map in the brief here, in the 8.1.13, you can see that near the operator, and you can click and make it bigger, actually. If you're on your desktop there, you're on your phone, you can zoom in. You can make the map bigger so you can read it. When you look at the risk near the operator, that little silhouette man there holding the SR-25, it's still kind of hazardous, and he has a silencer. Yeah. His head is pretty near to some really red colors on the map, sitting right on that contour line labeled 20. Yeah. So if you were climbing a mountain and you looked at your map and you were standing on a contour line that read 20, you would be at an elevation of 20 maybe or something, whatever, right? That's what the hazard map's telling you. Notice how the contour lines near the shooter's head are kind of close together. Yeah, they're kind of close together, right? Why is that? Why do you think they're close together there? Well, the blast overpressure is being expelled from the ejection port of the weapon, and it's really, really intense. Think about where it's coming from. You know, this is a direct impingement AR-10, right? So what's coming out of that port? Well, you have combustion gases entering the gas tube from the gas port in the barrel, and they're traveling through the tube into the carry key to help it move rearward and unlock the bolt, right? You know how that works, right? So that's one source of blast overpressure. That's actually coming directly from the barrel itself. There's gas going into the tube, it's coming from the barrel into the tube, going to the carrier to unlock the bolt. Where did that gas come from? Directly from the barrel, directly from primary combustion. It's pretty wild, right? That's coming out right in your face. That's the first source of blast. Well, what else? Well, you unlock your bolt. You're going to start to extract your case, aren't you? Well, then your chamber pressure that was containing your casing, well, you've dropped a lot because you dropped a lot already because the bullet's being pushed down the bore from the expanding combustion gases, and that expansion's, sending you down that ski slope shaped pressure blowdown curve in the barrel, right? That's good. But has it blown down to zero at the chamber yet? No, sir, ma'am, it has not blown down to zero yet. And now what else is going on? Well, you got a silencer at the end of the barrel too. What's that doing? Well, one thing it's doing is kind of complicated. It's reflecting shockwaves back through pre-compressed superheated gas at velocities that are really high. I mean, they're higher than the speed of sound in air. They are. Actually, relative to free air, you're moving those waves at multiple Mach numbers. They're moving to Mach Jesus, as they say. And so those loads are actually, in the barrel, are building impulse, and the total chamber blast impulse is increasing, and it's going to be expelled into atmosphere at the breech when your weapon system unlocks. So you have gas tube blast, chamber blast, and it's all coming together, and it's super high intensity relative to atmospheric pressure, right? So, well, at least right next to the ejection port of the weapon, right? Yeah. But as you move away from that port, the blast overpressure is expanding really quickly, and the amplitude starts to drop pretty quickly, and you can see that happen on the map. That's right. See how the contour lines start to get further apart? That means decay is happening quickly and then happening less quickly. The slope of the mountain is getting less steep. Yeah, it's leveling out. The waves are coalescing, and the risk begins to normalize when you get past the shooter. But it really, I want you to look at this stuff, and I don't want you to make a mistake. I really want you to see that being right near the port like that is hazardous, and that's what the map's telling you. And it's good to know, and you can tell your friends, and they should wear hearing protection. Now, keep in mind that this map is conservative, in that what we've done is we've used symmetry about the horizontal axis to show ejection port blast risk, okay? And the technical detail of that, just so you understand, is that there's not a jet model at the port like there is the muzzle in the simulation here. So that's why you see equal risk on the shooter's left side as you do on the shooter's right side. In reality, the left side would be less red than the right, but you get the point from the plot, right? This is supposed to be a representation. So except like at least one of your ears is getting the exact at-ear suppression rating from the test. That's that 21.1 at the ear for the silencer on the map. It's not like your other ear is magically getting something way safer. Like it's still going to be in the ballpark. So according to this map, it's dangerous. Okay, so you might want to wear hearing protection if you were shooting a bunch of shots with this setup. That's, again, this is a standard untuned SR-25. Are you tuning your SR-25? Probably not. I don't know. Now, what about forward of the shooter? Well, what does the map tell us about risk there? Well, here you're seeing something really intense. You can see coming out of the silencer there at coordinate 00. Yeah, pure muzzle blast being forced through the silencer, slowed, cooled, and then expelled at a rate that is actually much slower than what you would see from the ejection port or a bare muzzle. Yeah, it is. What's another big difference between muzzle blast and ejection port blast in general? Well, there is a flow rate difference, a mass flow rate difference. You have the entire, like out of the bare muzzle going into the silencer, you have the entire bore area flowing into the silencer. And then you have the entire silencer bore area flowing into the atmosphere. So what are you going to see at the exit aperture of the silencer like this on a short barrel 308? Well, you're going to have combustion gas jetting that's very high temperature, it's very high pressure, and the risk to a human at that exit with this particular system is actually very severe. If you put your head right near the exit of this silencer, you would not have a good time. It would not be fun for you. If you put your head there, you're gonna have, well, probably you might get some burns on your face, but you're also gonna damage your ears immediately, most likely. And if you were a couple of feet away, though, you'd be okay. That's way better than if you didn't have a silencer on it. Believe me, I've had a 243 Winchester shot right by my ear without having ear protection, like right near the muzzle. I had permanent hearing damage in one of my ears from it. Yeah, it was a hunting accident. I was not the shooter, and obviously, and yeah, it's a problem. But silence, if the guy weren't using a silencer, it would have been different. Yeah, too bad, so sad. That's permanent. So you ask yourself, well, is the silencer doing its job? Yeah. Oh my goodness, yes. It's doing a fantastic job. The silencer is doing such a good job that once you get to a full meter away from the end of the silencer, you're almost safe enough to take off your ears and shoot a deer. Almost. And too bad you can't, though. Why? Why can't you? Wah, wah. Well, to shoot this gun, you have to be at the ejection port blast zone. You can't be at the muzzle, right? Remember? Yeah. Small price to pay for shooting SR-25. It's not like you can't look cool and take off your hearing protection sometimes. Come on, guys. Looking cool has limitations. If you want to be smart and still hear your grandchildren talk to you when you're older, right? Like, don't go and try to be cool for YouTube and shoot silencers without hearing protection for views, dude. Don't do that. Use the suppression rating. It'll help you, man. Like, stop doing that crap. So anyway, this is the point of the hazard map. Like, just if anyone in the world looks at it, like, this is what I want you to do with it. If you're shooting this silencer from your hide or from your cave or a blind or wherever you high-speed, low-drag human sniper people or deer sniper people are shooting from, be aware that the risk is going to increase when you're near those surfaces. Like, this is in the free field. This map's in the free field. The contour map at near reflecting surfaces is going to get more dangerous. You're going to have more red near the reflecting surfaces. And if you're close enough to those surfaces, the contours will change near you. And that is something to think about. So please be prepared. And to be conservative, maybe put on some hearing protection, okay? Okay. That's big picture risk for this. So let's talk about details of the performance at a time of 33 minutes. In 48 seconds. Okay, very good. Get a drink of water. One moment. Okay. I'm going to close this hazard map brief. Those are meant to be brief. Very small. Very short. I'm going to pull up the full report. That's report 6.216. I have the member version in front of me. If you're not a Pew Science member, you can pull up the free version and follow along. I will not leave you behind. Okay. So here's where it's actually really wild. I think we should do a member research supplement on SR-25 silencer comparisons like a couple of months from now, so we can compare the different ones in depth, because it's already cool seeing the differences in this one compared to the Dylan one. So let's start at the top. We have a 29.0 suppression rating 1 meter left of the end cap of the silencer, 1.6 meters above the ground in the true free field. That's mil standard measurement location. We have a 21.1 suppression rating, 6 inches right of the shooter's right ear, mil standard. Bringing us to a total composite suppression rating for this system of 29.9 on the 14.5-inch Knights Armament SR-25 7.62 Nano battle rifle. And if you looked at the hazard map first, you already would have known those numbers, but at least you see the muzzle and ear. But now I'm telling you explicitly, for those of you like in the car driving and something, you can't look at the picture. So you look at these numbers, 29 at the muzzle, 21.1 at the ear, and you think to yourself, we're getting closer to AR-15 type hazards with this dang AR-10, aren't we? We just might be, guys. We just might be. And it's interesting to see because, the silencer's not even huge or anything. And this is a battle rifle. This isn't some 5.56 thing. This is like an actual rifle cartridge, not an intermediate rifle cartridge. So that's a lot of energy. And you're already like approaching what some older 5.56 cans would do on even some newer small 5.56 cans. So there might be hope for us 308 boys yet. Boys and girls. Yeah. All right. Let's check out what makes it tick though. Let's scroll down in the report. Scroll all the way down until you get to figure 1. Yeah. Check out the blast overpressure in figure 1. Full time scale in figure 1A and then early time in figure 1B. This is blast overpressure in the free field. It might be useful actually for you to also pull up report 6-11 with the Dillon DRC 308 because the difference in behavior between that silencer and this silencer is very, very noticeable. And I was doing that the other day. I was split screening it and looking at the two together. And this is kind of like what I was saying earlier when I was saying we should do a member research supplement here, because two big differences between what you see from the Carson 30 and what you saw from the Dillon silencer are the amplitude of the blast load and the vent duration. Like if you want to put this simply, loads come out faster from the Dillon silencer, okay? The Carson 30 produces more control. And that's directly visible in the blast overpressure data in the reports. If you look at figure 1A in both reports, you can see it's a pretty striking visual difference in amplitude and blowdown. The Dillon silencer spikes super hard and decays so fast that you see the ground reflection decoupling from the blowdown. Like gas is almost all the way out of the silencer before the blast waves return to the sensors after hitting the ground. Like that's how fast it vents. Now with the Rampart range Carson 30, blowdown still happening and you can barely see the ground reflection in the trace, right? So gas is still coming out. And that's a really quick visual illustration of gross flow duration and gross flow rate and overall blast load severity. It's a really quick, just looking at those two plots. You should, by now, if you're a Pew Science veteran, you should kind of be able to tell that if you're paying attention. And if you can't, that's okay, but I'm telling you. When you zoom into early time, what do you see there? Like the early physics show you that the Carson 30 is throttling the blast load as the bullet leaves the silencer, but the Dillon's letting the bullet have some company, isn't it? Yeah, there's a huge blast load following that bullet out of the Dillon silencer, and you would kind of expect that when you looked at the whole time history, right? The whole pressure history, right? Yeah, you have to have that happen with a Dillon can because the entire combustion volume has to vent so fast. You saw it happen. You got to start fast to get there in time. It would be strange if the early time looked differently than what it did. It would be very inconsistent physically. So it should make sense to you when you look in the early time. And again, I don't know if I'm being like too. I don't want to be patronizing. That might be really simple to a lot of you, but I'm explaining it in this simple way to help everybody because there's a lot of people listening, so I hope that's okay. Okay, now let's talk about momentum. Okay, this is different. So let's talk about how much energy the blast waves can transfer to you if you were standing near the side of this thing as it was fired. Okay, that's quantified by impulse in figure 2. So again, if you compare the two silencers in the two reports, you're going to see that blast momentum's coming out of the Carson 30 more slowly, okay, and decaying relatively gradually. Now, the Dylan silencer's dumping faster, and it also decays faster initially, then it tapers off. And so these are direct distal flow rate differences between the two silencers. Another way to say that is there are differences in late time flow rate, as we call it. Why do we call it that? Because it's happening outside the silencer in late time, not inside the silencer in early time. Okay. Now notice how the Carson 30 has impulse traces that are a little more consistent than the Dylan silencer. That's also important. The Carson 30 is a more controlled, produces a more controlled signature. It's a little bit longer, but it's also more efficient than the Dylan. Okay, this is like I'm just giving you these comparisons because context can really help people understand the behaviors, I think. So enough about the Dylan thing, but I hope you get the point. I want to illustrate these comparisons like this to you because the SR-25 data set is so small. Okay, so far. Look, again, there's more coming today, but still very limited. So I really want to get your brain thinking. It's almost like we're going back to Silencer 101 a little bit, right? Because it's a new host, and we're the comparison field is very small. When you have a very few models to compare, maybe you learn better because you don't get distracted by so many others. So maybe this is a really good time to be learning if you're new to this. Okay, I think. There is one thing that the Carson 30 inherits from the Infinity, and that is some first round pop. Remember, I'm bringing it back to where the technology came from, the Infinity core. So despite the changes they made to this, it did inherit some first round pop from the Infinity. Not all of it, but it did inherit some of it. Now, and it's not terrible. The first round pop from the Carson 30 is not terrible, but it's there. Okay, so you will have some more severity during that first shot than subsequent shots. It's not extreme, but it is noticeable to bystanders. Now, there's something in the report there's talk about, and if you shoot it, you'll see the operator of the weapon might not notice the first round pop as much. Why? Well, because the flow rate from the Carson 30 is pretty high, but it's not high enough to take that ejection port blast away, like way down. So that ejection port blast is still going to really dominate that risk scenario to the operator on the gun. And because of that, muzzle blast contributes less to the risk field in total to the operator, because remember, muzzle blast is still important. It's just that ejection port blast is now really important. It's a more important contributor. So what does that do? The net effect is that it makes the first round pop less important to the total signature that at the shooter's location, because why? FRP comes from the muzzle. It's a muzzle-driven phenomenon, and if you're ejection port blast dominant, then the first round pop's not going to matter as much to you. Make sense? Okay. And actually, if you're a Pew Science member and you go into the member section of the report, you can see the back-loaded FRP in the ear impulse signatures, which is a phenomena we noticed in our research a couple years ago that happens when you get ejection port blast dominant and you still have FRP. What you do if you look at these traces, the members, you'll start to see the FRP shift forward in time and get front-loaded with silencers like the Dylan and also things like the CAT AKB. Because the ejection port blast becomes less severe relatively to the FRP. It's just it's a phenomena. It's a mathematical indicator because of the way the integral works over in the time domain, because it's continuous. It's a continuous integral. So anyway, I told you this is a technical discussion. You can read ad nauseum on the website in the reports if you have a question about that, and I can explain it further if you need me to later. Okay, very good. And I should say that phenomena of backloaded versus front-loaded FRP changing with ejection port blast severity is the exact same phenomenon we notice with the AR-15. So it's good to know that physics isn't broken, and it's common to both the AR-15 and the AR-10. Weird. It's almost as if the data's real. Weird. Okay. Subtopic Foxtrot. Overall thoughts at a time of 44 minutes. In 42 seconds. Okay. All right, 1 second. Okay. Overall thoughts about the Carson 30. It's a pretty high performance silencer, like all things considered, at least so far, right? I mean, you're increasing performance over the Dylan by half a category at the muzzle. Okay. And we have there's a figure 5. It's like the little bar chart here. So you're increasing performance over the Dylan by half a category at the muzzle on the gun. And that's not really that much longer than the Dylan. Your flow rate's a little lower, but it's still doing okay, still working. It's lighter than the Dylan. So I think it's all about how you're using the battle rifle. Like, are you blasting away? Or are you humping it through the field and taking some precision shots and then tucking back into cover? Different strokes for different folks. Something for everyone here, I think. I think the Carson 30 seems to be aimed at practical use, which is good to see. It's also good and interesting to see technologies like the Infinity make their way into other products, or should I say, interesting to see technologies like the Infinity core derivative make its way into other products. You really do, or at least I love to see technology proliferation in the space. I think that means that we're advancing in general. I think that the design utility is higher. Things are being adopted and adapted for different use cases. And I love to see this officially, instead of ripping things off, actually do it under license. I love to see that. That's actually a good sign for the industry that's happening, instead of oh yeah, this silencer sure does look identical to the other one, but they didn't say anything about it. You don't want that stuff to happen. That's not good for anyone. That everyone loses when that happens. Believe me, we've seen it happen before. In this case, I think it's on the up and up, and it was a really cool thing because it's not like they carbon copied it. They actually used it and adapted to the use case, which I think is smart. I see this as somewhat, not definitively, but I think I see it as somewhat a maturity marker for the industry in some ways. I'm just trying to show you or tell you what I think is positive about it. Okay. So good job, Rampart range suppression. Not a bad debut product at all. Certainly competitive performance, objectively, showing the AR-10 is indeed tameable. And this is a 14.5-inch barrel. Might be interesting to see what feedback folks get from running on longer guns, because I think that's what they do with this too. So that could be interesting. So this 14.5-inch barrel, maybe it's a lower bound for performance. That would be interesting to know. Okay, so thank you for trusting us to perform this study. Okay, so now for something completely different. Well, similar because it's NATO, but different because there's less energy, and the technology is completely different too. So same, but different, but still same. Let's move into topic 2 at a time. 47 minutes and 55 seconds. Okay, let's see. Where are we here? Yeah, sound signature review 6217. The CAT ST on the 14.5-inch M4 mid-length gas AR-15. This is a new CAT rifle silencer using their SBX technology. It's a little bit different than surge bypass. So how does their universal 5.56 silencer stack up? Well, it's not normal. I'll tell you that right now. So this will be the introduction for today's report on the ST. Okay. Yeah, I have the draft sitting in front of me. It'll be live at 0700 in the morning. 1 second. That's 0700 Central U.S. Central Time. But people have been wanting this for a while. I can't tell you how many dang requests we got for this. Glad to see it's finally here to show you. It's been a minute since CAT did a 5.56 silencer, right? I think their most recent one was the T-Swift, which is a little bit. It's a blast diverter silencer. It's not really a normal silencer. It's not really my cup of tea. I'm not really into that. But I hear folks that have those blast cans like that thing so they can screw in the end. But more power to you, whatever. The ST is definitely different than that. This is CAT's quote-unquote universal 5.56 silencer. And I take that to mean it's meant for scalable barrel length performance. And the reason I take it to mean that is because we have tested it on multiple barrel lengths, and that's what we see happening with this silencer. Yeah, and I think it's important to say something. So there is a reality right now, like a technological reality in the silencer industry, that models are being released that behave in counterintuitive ways, which is not a bad thing at all. It's actually not a good thing. It's just a thing. It's not bad or good. It just is. Like a really big example, excuse me, a really big example of this recently was the Stealth Additive Works Tisha. That's a 556 silencer. Well, it's not only 556. They have other versions too. But anyway, we're talking about the 556 one. With the 556 version of that silencer, what we saw in testing was that it's really high blast input pressure biased. The higher amplitude the input pressure, the more of the silencer is used, and the higher efficiency the suppression. And that can be very counterintuitive, especially if you're an old school silencer user. Like, in fact, even if you're a layman, especially if you're a layman in general, like the physics seem counterintuitive unless you really understand how silencers work. Like most of the time, shorter barrels with higher pressure make the stuff coming out of the silencer more severe, like most of the time. But that is not the case with the Tisha. It actually loses efficiency as the barrel length increases. Okay, and we talked about that whenever we published that. I don't remember. It was either the end of last year or beginning of this year. I can't remember. So with the CAT ST, it was interesting to see that the opposite happened in our testing. So, like sort of like old school silencers in a way. So we did Mark 18 testing with the ST. And the muzzle suppression rating was a few points under the Tisha, and the shooter's ear suppression rating was pretty similar to the Tisha. So okay, and then we put it on the M4. Boy, that was actually wild, because apparently as you increase the barrel length of the ST, it actually behaves in a reasonable, cogent way and gets a lot quieter. And the fact that I'm saying that about anything CAT related is actually funny to me. Like, imagine something CAT doing being predictable. Well, that'll be the day. No, it's today. It is apparently. So the silencer uses their SBX technology. It's different than surge bypass, and I'll give you some quick info on it in a second. We'll go deeper next week, of course, in the technical deep dive. But so today you're going to get the M4 data. Okay, I think we're going to be publishing that Mark 18 data too, but I actually don't know. So what I do know, though, is that I have a feeling there's going to be a ton of people shooting this on all kinds of barrel lengths soon enough. So you're going to see what we mean. The performance of this silencer is not normal. The 14.5, it's just the 14.5 performance is... I mean, the performance in general is really weird, and it's the blast impulse coming out of it. Just when you see the raw data, you're gonna be like, "What in the world?" It's just one of those things. We're just hitting these performance. It's like we're hitting the rev limiter or something, like bouncing off the rev limiter. Now, I will say, just because I know this is the technical talk yet, but we're gonna get so many questions. I'm gonna try to head them off the pass here. So there's some really important differences that I want to let you know about between the ST and like the old WB, for example, and some of the other CAT rifle silencers. Okay, so the first difference is that there's a little more first round pop with the ST, but it's a loaded statement because it's so quiet at the muzzle that the FRP is a thing. So it sounds weird to say, but like when I say there's a little more FRP, it's relative to itself, right? Like it has a quiet first shot, and then it gets even more spooky quiet. Like FRP from the ST is going to be quieter than all the shots from a WB. Does that make sense? Like when I say it has like a little more FRP, it's like, yeah, relative to itself. Okay. The second difference, the gross flow rate, and this is actually kind of a big difference. Early time flow rate from the ST it's actually pretty high compared with a conventional silencer, which is good because that's what you want when you want to avoid getting gassed out, like in general shooting, right? But it's not quite as high as something like a WB. They did change that part. Also, the late time flow rate is like way throttled with this thing, dude. And how do we know that? Well, You can see it in the data. And when you see the blast impulse traces from the M4 test in the morning, you're going to be like, WTF, mate? Like, what? Like, where did the blast impulse go? Yeah, I know. The technical discussion next episode is going to be fun because we get to go through this weirdness. Like, it's so interesting to me. We were actually laughing when we were looking at the data. We were like, that's not real. That doesn't make sense. No, seriously. You're like, is that a bolt gun silencer? It's weird. We just don't see this on 5.56. So that's the funny, cheerful part, right? But it's not all funny and cheerful. The part that's going to wake you up to reality, I think, is that there is, in fact, a consequence to these changes. Okay. The consequence is that on an overgassed gun, it is not going to treat you like a WB treats you. Okay. It's going to keep you more honest. And you're going to see that with the M4 suppression rating. Now, on a Mark 18, yeah, it's going to give you a shooter's ear suppression rating that's close to the Tisha. But on M4, nah, son. It's going to do what some other high-performance silencers end up doing. And the gun's too overgassed. So if you're a fan of tuning your gun, you're in for a treat. Because you're either going to do that or you're going to move your gas port closer to the barrel muzzle like a Mark 18. I don't know. You'll figure it out. You're smart. And this is how the SBX technology and the CAT ST works on 5.56 so far in our testing. The total system has higher back pressure than a WB type system, and even like one of those alley cats or like ODB, whatever. The CAT ST is a little higher back pressure, but any degree of tuning is gonna like alleviate it. But it's because the early time flow rate is pretty high. It's just different, not as high, and the distal flow rate is like doing things that I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it until you see the waveforms. Then I can speak to you more intelligently about it. Because when you see it, you're going to be like, oh, I'm like, I know. So the silencer is not short and it's not long. It is a full-size 5.56 can. We tested the QD model in Inconel, 6.3 inches with the built-in QD mount. When you put the muzzle device in there, well, the AI Nano thing we had that came with it, it ended up being 6.6 inches long total from barrel shoulder to end of silencer. Not a K can, but not super long either. The performance is not normal. So when you see that, I think that will help you determine whether or not you care about the length. It's 1.6 inches in diameter. The Inconel silencer with the built-in QD mount and the muzzle device together total is 20.5 ounces. Seems reasonable for what it is. I don't know how long the hub version is, but it's shorter because, like all these CAT QD silencers, like if you use the hub adapter thingy and the muzzle device in the hub version, it generally gets you the same length as the QD version with the muzzle device, whatever. I don't know. I'll let you guys at the spreadsheets figure that out. Yeah, that's the cliff notes, I think, for the ST. It looks like 5.56 competition is still heating up. I did not, honestly, and I can, like, just to peek behind the curtain a little bit, guys, like, when we tested the Tisha, we were like, oh my God, are we going to hit 50? Almost did. And then this came, and we're like, oh, okay. Never in all my years have I seen blast data like this from a 5.56 silencer. I just like, and that's the same thing I said when the Tisha came out. When we tested, I was like, I've never seen data like that. Now, this data is even more different and more weird. When you see it, you're going to be like, oh. Remember, guys, and for you, those of you new to Pew Science, when we test silencers, we really zone in on the combustion and propagation, and there are fingerprints. We can almost tell what silencer it is looking at the data without knowing what silencer it is. And when you see this, you're going to be... When you see this, you might think it's a bolt gun can at first. You're going to be like, what? It's like, I know, dude. I know. It's not normal. And the crazy thing is, like, we've tested like big bolt gun cans on 5.56. Like, we didn't like publish them, but we tested them, and they can't do anything like this. That's what makes it really weird. You're like, whoa. Yeah. the blast levels just go away. Like they're really suppressed. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what people think when they see this being shot. Like I saw like someone was commenting online or something. Some folks that went to the recent Capitol Armory shoot, the Quiet in the Capitol down here in Texas. Capitol Armory does like an annual silencer shoot where they have vendors there and you can go and shoot silencers and buy silencers, all that good stuff. I saw Andrew from Otter Creek mention that he shot this thing on, like he was mentioned online publicly. He shot, and I haven't spoken with him about it yet, but he said he thought it sounded really good. And I was like, huh, because that's the only person I've talked to that's like shot it, like besides the manufacturer. If anyone's listening and has shot one, I want to know what you think, because I thought this was nuts, dude. This is like wild to me, right? Like, anyway, again, we thought the Tisha was nuts, and it is. The Tisha is nuts. I mean, the Tisha can outperform this thing on a Mark 18 in pure suppression, but then the ST walks the Tisha on the M4, and you're like, what? It's like, talk about a race, man. I hope this keeps happening. I love this stuff. And speaking of NATO cartridges, let's go back to 7.62 NATO now, shall we? With the next CAT thing released. Yeah, more data published today at a time. 1 hour. 1 minute and 8 seconds. Okay, very good. 1 moment. Okay. Getting in the home stretch here, aren't we? Sound Signature Review 6.218, Report 218. The CAT AKB on the 14.5-inch SR-25. Just when you thought we were done with SR-25, it bring you right back. Yeah, so another new CAT rifle silencer. This time, the quote-unquote universal 30 caliber model. Different and smaller than the ODB, actually. This one seems to be at home on everything from subsonic stuff to battle rifles. And that's the intro. It's like, so you say you want SR-25 data. So you say you want semi-auto 308. Well, you're going to get it. And what better way to do it than with another high performer, the CAT AKB. We're going to start to spoil you guys. You're getting 3 silencers in a row. They're pretty decent on the dang SR-25. We're going to have to show you some crappy stuff so you know what to think. Yeah, no. I actually, this AKB thing, the Akbar. I'm just going to call it the AKB. I wasn't sure what the AKB was going to be. I knew it was a 30 caliber silencer, but I wasn't exactly sure what it was for. Like, was it for an AK? I don't know, dude. Apparently, it's for a lot of different 30 caliber platforms. So far in our testing, it appears that what they've been saying about it is true. Like the CAT ST, it uses the SBX technology. They've moved away from surge bypass in these newer models. I don't think the older models are going away. I think it's just different. So like the CAT ST, the AKB performs a little bit differently than the previous gen stuff, though, but not in the same way. It's a different relationship. So like with the Akbar, you're getting a very high early time flow rate, but it's segregated more than inside an ODB. That's going to make more sense next week when we talk technically and when you see the report. And then when you get to the distal end, the pressure staging is more advanced, which is like actually something that the ST has too. So this is different, a little different than the change between a WB and an ST. Like when you talk about the ODB versus the AKB. You're gonna see the AKB actually slightly outperform the ODB on super high pressure 30 caliber stuff, but then you're gonna see the ODB slightly outperform the AKB on super low pressure 30 caliber stuff. Go figure. But the big thing is that the AKB is smaller. It's shorter. So we tested the hub model, which is 6 inches long without a mount in it. That's actually pretty small for a 30 caliber rifle silencer. It's shorter than the Dillon. It's shorter than the Rampart range Carson 30, which is like the Infinity. And the CAT AKB is 1.6 inches in diameter. So that's smaller than both those silencers too. See, if you aren't careful, you might think this is a 5.56 silencer, and you can use it on 5.56 if you want. And we've done that. We've actually done that testing. It actually does pretty good, especially for the shooter. But at the muzzle, the ST is gonna like totally eat its lunch, like bad. So like as you can imagine, that's normal because the ST is 4.5.56. But yeah, like as a utility silencer, the AKB might surprise you. I've always thought I think probably the ODB though, like the ODB is going to do better than the AKB on 5.56. I think ODB might be the ultimate utility silencer. I think AKB is like a good utility 30 caliber silencer, if that makes sense. I think that's probably a good way to put it based on what we see in our lab data at least. Now, the interesting thing I think about the AKB is the high flow rate and high pressure performance for the size. I think this might be one of those cases where it beats most things at the muzzle for the size, like so far. I mean, I think remember the Precision Armament Titrix 300, that bolt gun can, that crazy looking 3D printed bolt gun can that you kind of didn't know had like weird baffle geometry until like I really told you about it. Yeah. That thing's going to beat the AKB at the muzzle, like on 30 caliber stuff, but the back pressure is a different world. So like the AKB is going to flow way faster. So that's a different sport. It's like one's a bolt gun can, one's like more universal or whatever. So you can put the AKB on whatever 30 caliber system you want, probably kind of, whatever. But it's weird that it's like doing what it's doing with the flow rate it has. That's the interesting part to me in the size. So you're going to see actually kind of close performance to the Carson 30 here, but higher with a higher flow rate in a smaller package than the Carson 30. And by inspection, that directly answers the question of AKB versus Infinity on the SR-25 already too, like by default, right? Because like the AKB is going to slightly edge out a larger ODB on the SR-25. It'll beat an Infinity. It'll be the Carson 30, and it's smaller than all that stuff, which is interesting. It's interesting. Technology is advancing, and I mean, CAT, they release, I don't know if it's true. I was thinking about this. I wonder how many models they release per year. I don't know, but it's got to be up there with like, I don't know how many. I haven't really thought about that. Maybe it's because we test a lot of their stuff. Like I don't know across the industry what the average like release rate of silencer models is like across companies, but this has got to be up there, dude. There's so many. It's actually like, it's really challenging to deal with it all. Yeah. So yeah, the AKB uses the SBX technology like the ST, but has lower back pressure than the ST. Yeah. So I think that's good enough intro for now. That's a lot of information. Oh, right. Just both of those, the AKB and the ST, are both available in titanium or in Canal, and both in QD or hub. Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's enough now. Reports, both those reports, the ST on the M4 and the AKB on the SR-25, both 14.5-inch barrels. They both go live at 0700 Central in the morning. Tomorrow for me, today for you. So please enjoy. Stay safe. We'll be back next week for the technical deep dives, and we'll be back with even more silencer data. We're going to keep, I'm telling you, March is busy. March Madness, as the basketball people say. I will talk with you folks again soon. Okay, bye.